Hey guys, what is going on? Today we're going to be covering how to maintain a go-kart. The first thing we're going to be looking at is going to be the wheel bearings. So per wheel we have two bearings, one on the inside, one on the outside, and a shim in the middle, which is basically just a pipe which runs over the 5/8 shaft depending on your axle size. Re-greasing the bearings will increase the longevity of your bearings, obviously, so you will not be running metal against metal. Rather, there'll be a thin layer of grease in between. So instead of having your wheels sound like this, it's something a bit more like this. As I mentioned earlier, I've already re-greased this wheel over here, but the remaining three are not re-greased yet. So the first two are not difficult at all to do. They are non-driven wheels, no chain, no brake, no nothing. So all I have to do is grab my 24mm socket on a ratchet. I'm just going to go ahead and undo these. There is a slight taper on top of the nut. That's because this is a locking nut. So if you get this the wrong way around, well, good luck putting it back on it anyway. This is what the wheels look like currently. I have given this one a clean, but not a re-grease. The bearings are not very nice sounding. I'm going to be showing you guys how to repack these bearings the easy way. All you're going to need to re-grease the bearings is an old razor blade and a pot of grease. So we're not going to be taking out the bearings from the wheel. So what you're going to want to do is you want to get this razor blade. You want to get the blade in between the seal and the edge of the bearings. Try and avoid damaging the seal by cutting it. But if that cannot be avoided, it's not a big deal. Seals are not very expensive online. So now that we have the seal off, what you want to do is if you look inside, you want to establish how much grit is inside this grease. Although it looks very nasty, and although there are some chunks in there, it doesn't look too bad. So ordinarily, if the grease was too bad, I would take this out. This is a previously used bath of methylated spirits, or white spirit, whatever works for you. So I put this in a bath of white spirit until all this comes out, and then burn the remaining stuff out with a blowtorch. So all I'm going to be doing is scraping out the excess of the grease, which I can get with a knife. And then I will be filling up my syringe here, and then just injecting some new grease. Once I've cleaned out most of the dirt and grit, what I like to do is get the clean part of my very dirty cloth, and just go in there and get anything like that out. So we'll just continue doing this. Now, just to get any of the excess dirt out that we may have introduced, I like to spray a bit of WD-40 in the middle, if it'll come out. You want to go in, you want to pull yourself up some grease, just like so. Try not to get as much air, try not to get many air bubbles in there. If you do, not a big deal, just carry on going and grab some more. And get your finger, make sure it's clean, and push all that grease into place. It does say on the packaging to avoid overpacking bearings, and although this might look like I am overpacking the bearing, bear in mind that the other side of the bearing ring is still has the old grease in it. You want to grab your old seal, maybe give her a spray with WD-40 as well, and just give her a wipe down, just like so. Place her back on top, and with your two thumbs, you push them down, just like this. So we'll just get this one pushed down fully, and we'll get it seated properly, repeat the process on the same side, and we should be good to go. So all that's left to do now is to continue on this wheel. So guys, I just thought I'd give this bearing a look over quickly. And look what I found. That is absolutely insane. That's gone clean in half. All the way down the side there. And the funny thing is, bearing rotates just fine. I have noticed that this one is missing a snap ring. So possibly this could have been an earlier replacement. I'm going to have to find another bearing for that, because I'm not putting that back in there. After putting this one back on and replacing that old snapped bearing with a much less, only slightly shot bearing, sounds a billion times nicer. This is the drive wheel. We have a chain link we have to worry about. It is called the master link. So this is the master link here. So the master link needs to be taken apart to remove this chain. You want to just push this one that way. For the master link, it is very important that you have the thicker end or the non-clip end in the direction of the drive, because if you don't, this can come unpopped. There we go, perfect. Didn't even need the split. It didn't even need the pin. Remove this pin, and then you want to rotate this all the way down here, so it's not on a sprocket tooth or anything like that, and you just want to work it off. What you want to do is you want to get this kind of figure of 8 off, and you just want to split the link just like so. Just want to take off your chain, and here you go. And you just want to undo this just like so. From this point onwards, it's much like working with another wheel. Some are disc brake and some are drum brake, but they all use this pre-standard 4 lug bolt pattern. Now that I've re-greased the bearings, I just want to go over a couple things with you guys. How to identify sprocket wear is, if you look at the teeth, they've gone into very fine points. So my sprocket is very worn down. So there is a massive difference between those thicker ones and these really thin ones. I'm going to keep this on here, but I do have this as a spare for when I do need it, and I will go over it when I do eventually put this on here. Is if you look at your drum, you just want to identify if it's covered in dirt like this, which mine is, so this will need cleaning. You want to see if there are any cracks inside the drum itself. Cleaning the drum is very important. It is also important to clean this side as well. But the crack is something I will need to worry about in the future, but if you regularly drive a go-kart with a drum brake, this is what I would recommend you look out for. Of course, the ideal option would be to replace this entirely and go with a live axle with a disc brake. Since I cannot afford that, I'm going to be sticking with my one-wheel wheel for now, and then eventually upgrading this system to a disc brake. Also, a very important thing to look out for is if you're looking at your clutch and you cannot spin it freely, what you want to do is grab your, what I like to use is 3-in-1 oil, identify your circlip. Every clutch should have one, and you just want to go here, just want to dabble a tiny bit of oil inside here. It is crucial that you only get it on the bearings. If you get it on the clutch, you'll have a slipping clutch on your hands. Our chain, on the other hand, is a different story entirely. So if you look at it and listen to it, although it does move freely, it is incredibly dry. In some links, such as here and here, it is showing signs of rusting. So running this long enough might have seized this chain. So what I like to do is I like to jam her in a jam jar, get my WD-40, which is shake her up. You just want to give her a nice covering. So many people will say wax your chains, and while this is true and while you can wax a chain, I just prefer to regularly oil mine, to be honest, because the chains, especially 35 chain, is not a very expensive type of chain. I just want to seal up your jam jar just like this, and then you want to just give her a good old shake. The WD-40 and the 3-in-1, it's already pretty much black. So what you might end up wanting to do is you might end up putting a little bit of grease on the chain itself. I don't know how well this works, but I have seen that to get the grease inside the bearings of the chain, you will just want to warm it up a little bit with a blowtorch. And I do not mean go excessive with it, because that will ruin your chain almost certainly. You just want to warm it up so that the grease turns into a less viscous liquid and will go inside in between the links of the chain. After cleaning up the chain in our concoction here, you should see that the liquid that it leaves off is, well, relatively black. So what you will want to do now is, just so you can get rid of that dry noise, is, although you can use grease, I am running fairly low on grease, I can also use copper slip. So Copper slip isn't always ideal. Yes, it is a conductor rather than grease, which I don't think is a conductor. But in our application of being on a chain, it shouldn't make any difference whatsoever. And I just think that copper grease will have a better effect on a chain than normal grease will. Wow, the copper slip made such a huge difference. I would definitely recommend doing that to your chain. If you don't have any copper slip, I guess normal grease will do. But this has made such a lovely... It's restored it to basically brand new condition. Definitely recommend copper slip. We'll be putting the re-greased and cleaned up drive wheel back on there with the re-greased and cleaned up chain. Let's give some attention to the engine. The engine on this is a Lonson 212, like I have mentioned in a previous video. So it's only had a couple of hours on it and still has the original break-in oil inside. So break-in oil is, as you can see, mine is starting to go black. And when it starts to go black, that is when you want to start to change it. That is a common mistake which people make on things like lawnmowers and even some go-karts. They do not change their break-in oil out with fully synthetic motor oil, which will definitely speed up the wear of the engine and decrease the life and performance of said engine. So especially with my engine, which is revving ungoverned at around 6,000 RPM. You want to undo the drain plug and just let the oil tip out on the ground. So guys, draining oil out of these engines is very simple. You just want to grab your 10mm spanner and you just want to undo this. I've already broken it loose. Sometimes they can be a bit of a pain. But let's see if I can do it without getting any oil on my hands. I have no idea how long this bolt is. Or rather, drain plug. Let's see. Oh man. Oh dear. Ah yes. Definitely was time for a change. So I can smell fuel, which is not good. Although it's alright on these engines because they don't really... not precision engines, if I'm honest. Actually, looking at my oil, I can see a lot of silver shards. So I need to be maybe slightly concerned about that. But then again, what that also could be is dust coming off my frame. So guys, now that the engine's finished draining, and it is now just dripping off the engine mounting plate, all we want to do is we want to just put our little drainage plug back in here, and my fingers are covered in oil, and as you can tell, it does smell because I am for some reason rhyming my words. So what you want to do, again, get your size 10 and just tighten it back up. There probably is a torque spec for this, but I don't know, and quite frankly, I'm not too concerned. It's not a main component whatsoever, and as long as you don't tighten up until it becomes loose again, it should be fine. Grab a funnel, your oil of choice. I can use this Castrol Magnatech, and it is 10W40. Now, they do recommend 10W30 for these engines, but for some odd reason, I cannot find any 10W30 oil at any fuel station in England. So, we're going with 10W40. Yeah. So, we'll just go slowly in the engine, and I can see that that is perfect. I've got my oil level almost perfectly up to the right standard. I will add a tiny little bit more, because I like them a tiny little bit over full, but not overly. I'm not going to overdo it. By the way, when you have done a break-in, it is perfectly normal to see some white or metallic sparkles in the oil. Just like on a car, one of the crucial parts of the go-kart is steering. The go-karts have a very simple steering mechanism. No rack and pinion or anything like that. Just two push rods going like this and this. So you may be wondering, how can you tune this? So if your wheels kind of go in like this, and they both face each other, well, that won't be good for steering, and you will cause excessive wear on your tyres. Now, as you can see, my ones my ones are pretty, they're alright. All you want to do is you want to either loosen or tighten these nuts on these rose joints. Twist in or out the rose joints however you need. This bolt running through my steering arm, I think that is, well, or whatever you want to call it, the pivot point of my steering axle, this is completely dry. So guys, all you want to do to remove this is you just want to go ahead and undo this bolt under here. Unfortunately, since I do not have another 19-inch millimeter spanner, sorry, I will have to use mole grips. And they are mole grips, not vice grips. Once removed, this is what you should be left with. What you want to do now is you want to just clean this up, clean off the old grease, and you just want to replace this grease with new stuff, and you just want to put it back in there, and she should be perfect. After putting the new grease on the spindle, all you want to do is insert it just back in here, just like it was. And there we go. That should be perfect. Now all you want to do is go back down here and tighten up your nut. And as far as I'm aware, there is no specific way around this needs to go on. So guys, while we're back here, we may as well check the cylinder bore. So I have my old bore scope here. It's not looking into the cylinder or in fact anything right now. And just the way you want to do this is very, very, very simple. All you want to do is just break loose your spark plug. Obviously, don't break it. Oh, I talked that down a lot. And while you're at it, guys, you can take a look at your spark plug, and you should be able to identify whether your spark plug is how your engine is running. The easiest way to see this is see the white ceramic, or what was white ceramic on the engine. If that is too pale white, you are running very lean indeed. So your engine's too hot. You want to richen your mixture up on your carburetor. And if that is black, as soot, and in fact if you touch it, black soot comes off it, you're running incredibly rich. So what you want to do is you want to have it kind of how I have it now, although it looks like I am a little bit on the lean side, I have to say. But I think that this should be running all right now. So, and just judging by the sound of the engine as well. So now that we've got that covered, let's take a look inside the cylinder. You guys are currently looking at the very top of my piston. So let's put her right down to bottom dead center. And here we go. So what you can see down there, guys, is a bit of oil. I'm not sure whether I need to be concerned about that or not. In regards to the cylinder walls, see, that's the oil I was talking about. So I'm not sure if I need to be worried about that oil at all. But in regards to the cylinder walls, they look just fine. Yes, we have lost that new crosshatch pattern, which you would get on a newly honed block. But that is just how it is. This engine has about maybe 4 or 5 hours on it. So that's running at ungoverned speed. So for a normal average engine, that's probably about 10 hours. So in terms of cylinder pitting, I don't think we have any. Now, if you were to see a big scar down the side of your cylinder wall, that is when you would know that something is wrong. You have either got a misgapped piston ring, or you have a lot of shards of metal in the oil. We may as well check our fuel line. So fuel line, as you will see, is very crucial on an engine, obviously, because it delivers fuel to the carburetor. And without that, or with a ruptured fuel line, you can actually cause a fire. So a miss spark from the spark plug, or this comes loose and arcs against the block, and you will then have a fire on your hands. So I do not have proper fuel line. This is just plastic hose, which goes bad after a short while of using it. So as you can see, mine's already starting to go yellow. But I'm going to leave it for now because I will show you what the old one used to look like. Alright then, here's the old one. This old fuel line, it's completely yellow. Compare that to that, and there's a world of a difference. So that's why I think this one probably still has some life left in it. And if you look at this, that might even break. So if you're running something like this on an engine which is turning about 6,000 RPM, that is a recipe for disaster. So, and that is how you will burn down your go-kart, mini bike, or whatever engine, or whatever you are using your engine on. So, never ever run fuel line like this. Do as I say, not as I do. So guys, that about wraps it up for this video. Once again, if you guys know what this go-kart is, please let me know down in the comments below. Hope you guys found this video useful, and I hope you guys know how to maintain a go-kart now. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. See ya.